Here is the Russian explanation of how aspective verbs work in Russian. You ask a simple question, что делать? And что сделать? Now you know the rules. So thanks for watching, I'll see you guys later. In all seriousness, that is what Russian speakers will tell you about the rules of aspective verbs, but those aren't rules at all, they don't explain anything. These are just questions that native speakers can use because they know every verb in Russian. They don't work for learners at all. Here is the actual explanation. Hi everyone, welcome back to this channel. Today I'm going to cover one of the hardest things to get used to in Russian, but I kind of need to cover it at some point. These are aspective verbs, which in Russian you basically say something like vid glagolov, I guess is the word. So in Russian there are two forms of every verb. So every verb will have two forms. You have the imperfective, the incomplete form, and the complete form, or the perfective form. In Russian they would say несовершенный вид and совершенный вид. This basically is used for imperfective verbs are used for incomplete or ongoing actions or regular actions, and perfective verbs or complete verbs are used for actions that happen one time or will be completed or have been completed, things like this. So here I'm just going to give you a list of verbs and give you the imperfective and the perfective aspect. This will take a long time to kind of get used to and master, but this is kind of just an introduction to show you how it works. So I don't expect you to remember everything of this. It's probably the hardest thing for me in the language. So here's a list of verbs, the imperfective and the perfective aspect. So we have to talk, which is говорить. Говорить is the imperfective aspect. The perfective aspect is поговорить, with the P-O at the start, поговорить. Or they have another form which is сказать, which means to say. So it's kind of like they have two versions. Verb to go, which is идти, by foot, that is. идти, by foot. That's the imperfective aspect. The perfective aspect would be пойти or пойти, which is, again, you add pa to the start. Same thing with ехать. Ехать is go by vehicle, and it's ехать is the imperfective, поехать is the perfective aspect. Next we have слышать, which means to hear. Слышать is the imperfective, the perfective is услышать. So you add the prefix u, слышать. Пить, to drink. Выпить, to drink complete, I guess. So imperfective, perfective, пить, выпить. There are actually many ways to say eat, but this is kind of the most common, just есть, which also kind of be confused with to be, which is also есть, so that's kind of confusing, but anyway. So it's есть is imperfective, to eat. Поесть is... So there's two forms, it's поесть or съесть. I can't actually remember the difference, to be honest. I think съесть is probably the form you should use. So есть, съесть. Alright, now we have a kind of a different form. Normally the ones I've shown before just add a prefix, but sometimes you just change the word completely. So we have to meet will be встречать, встречать. That's the imperfective aspect. The perfective form is встретить. So you kind of change the ending and the middle of the verb here. To play, играть. So you could, I think it's the same as like eat, I guess. You can say поиграть or сыграть. I think сыграть is used more often. Alright, so there's a list of verbs and their imperfective and perfective aspect. So I don't know if you notice anything here, but are there any rules? No, there are no rules. Sometimes these are prefix, sometimes these are suffix, sometimes the verb is completely different. Take, for example, you have брать, to take. That's the imperfective aspect. What's the perfective aspect? Try and guess it. You can't. It's взять. completely different verb, like no connection at all. Or you have, for example, siedzieć, to sit. So the perfective aspect is siest, which is kind of similar to eat, I guess, but it's a completely different verb. So sometimes it's a completely different verb. Sometimes it's a suffix. Sometimes it's a prefix. There's not really any rules. And sometimes you have really complicated stuff like this, where you have говорить, поговорить.
Идти, пойти.
Then you have покупать, купить. Which is perfective and imperfective here? It's actually the opposite. So поговорить, пойти, adding pa makes it perfective. Покупать is imperfective, and купить is perfective. There's no logic here. Honestly, it's random. So unfortunately, you kind of just need to memorize these, and there's not much I can really do to help you. I had to memorize these. I don't have anything that can really help you here. You just have to look at every verb and remember each form. There's nothing I can really do to help you here. There are no rules. Alright, I'll just give you some example sentences. So for example, we have I am going now. Я иду сейчас. So we use the imperfective because it's now, still happening. If you say it in the future, we often use the perfective in the future. So you'd say я пойду завтра. Or я пойду в магазин завтра. I will go to the shop tomorrow. Or you could say мы говорим сейчас. We are talking now. Мы поговорим завтра. We will talk tomorrow. Or you can say something like я говорил ему и потом он сказал, which is like I was talking to him and then he said. So we say I was talking, so we use the imperfective aspect. Then he said, we use the perfective aspect. This takes a lot to get used to. This is kind of just an introduction of how it works. I'll cover this later in more detail, but I'll try to explain it when we read something, which is perfective, which is imperfective. It takes a lot to get used to. This is just an introduction. So for now, just know there are two forms of verbs in Russian: imperfective, perfective, and use one for incomplete actions, one for completed actions. Alright, let me know if you have any questions, and I'll see you guys next time.